Welcome to the Empowered Women channel with your host, Coach Dee. Coach Depo, a certified leadership coach and author, brings you the Word of God today. It is our hope that today's message will encourage and empower you to do great things in your life. Be blessed as you listen.
So welcome to the Empowered Woman channel. This is Coach Dee, and it's a pleasure to be back. We're still on the topic of abuse, and I have with me in the house today a great woman of God. She loves the Lord. She's a nurse practitioner, and I actually caught her at work. She's been kind enough to grant me some time so we can talk about one of the things that impact women who have been abused. Miss Edith Declan, welcome. Welcome, Edith. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm excited for what you're going to share with us today. So let me start by asking you, as a medical professional, what do you think of abuse? What's your definition of abuse? Because I know that you're very passionate about community health in general. You have a huge interest in diabetes and chronic illness. And even though you're a nurse practitioner, your focus is in research. And because of that, you're very interested in chronic diseases as well. But trauma results in chronic diseases. What's your definition of abuse or trauma? Tell us, please.
Now, thank you very much for having me. First of all, Coach Dee, it's a pleasure to be here today, talking about some very crucial matters as far as, the human life is concerned.
Right.
So, like you rightly said, I'm a nurse practitioner, but I always refer to myself as a nurse practitioner with a huge difference, because I didn't just go to school to learn to manage conditions. I also learned to manage people, to help people live purposefully, to help people live a fulfilled kind of life, So it just goes beyond writing prescriptions and sending people for labs and all the rest of that. I am a very passionate person, and some areas of passion include community health, because I don't necessarily believe in just giving out pills. Okay. I believe in prevention. I believe in those characters and those strategies and infrastructures that encourage a healthy living as opposed to a reactive kind of living, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me. Now I'm going to talk about abuse. The word abuse, we hear that a lot everywhere. At a point in life, honestly, I try to stay away from it. I try to stay away from, talking about abuse, because you have to heal. You have to have healed from something to be able to talk about it.
Right.
And unfortunately, 90% of the people on earth today have experienced one form of abuse or the other. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical abuse. It could be emotional. It could be psychological. It could be monetary or economic or financial,
Right.
So the way I look at abuse is when someone uses their behavior or their influence over somebody else to cause harm to that person or to kind of exert power over them, especially when that behavior is repeated regularly. So what am I trying to say? When somebody uses their own power over somebody else to cause any kind of harm or to cause them to take power away from that person, that is potentially an abuse.
Wow. Somebody described it to me this way. Let me see if I can find it. She actually sent me a message. Abuse, from her point of view, is attempted burial of unbreakable souls through erosion. So
through what?
Through erosion, eroding them slowly.
Erosion. Okay, erosion.
Yes.
Okay.
Erosion, yes. Eroding them slowly but surely. And at the end of the day, what I'm hearing you say to me is kind of like akin to what she's saying here, that somebody else is using their power. And abuse is all about power and control. We know that. And I'm sure that as a medical professional, you know that as well. It's all about control, it's all about power. So now somebody is using their power to subdue the other person. That technically is abuse, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so we do know that abuse or trauma, whatever we want to call it, impacts the woman who's been through it. It's not always the woman who's guilty of being abused. Sometimes the woman abuses the man. But whatever the situation is, our focus is on women and the impact of abuse on them, on their health, on their mind. So can you tell me in a few words what the impact of abuse is on the woman, the mind, the body? I've read a book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I know
I
that
read that book too. I actually have it somewhere.
a lot of doctors would say, go read that book because it tells you how, trauma and abuse impact you. But tell me, as a medical professional, please, how trauma and abuse impact the woman and her health before we come to TTX, which is really what I want us to talk about today. Yeah.
Abuse can come in different forms. And of course, most of the time, the abusers are people who are very close to us. Okay.
Right.
Family members, friends, spouses, colleagues at work or bosses at work. So abuse usually doesn't come from people who are not close to us. They come from people who have direct impact on us. Okay. And just for clarity, abuse can happen to either men or women. It's not gender exclusive. Okay. It's not only a female thing or a male thing. Abuse can happen to, anybody, So, and then the different types of abuse, we have different types of abuse. We have the physical abuse. There's an emotional abuse or verbal abuse. There is sexual abuse. There is financial abuse. There is digital abuse. We see that a lot with social media these days. People are stalking people and the rest of that. So, with these different types of abuse comes a degree of loss of self-esteem. When somebody literally strips you of your power, your ability to make decisions, your ability to see yourself as someone who has any sense of worth, that takes a toll on us or on the individual physically and mentally. So abuse has a huge impact. It plays, it has a lot of effect on the individual. And when I talk about physical, I'm not just talking about bodily wounds. It could be infections as well from sexual abuse.
Oh, wow.
It could be infections from wounds that wouldn't heal or repeated wounds. It could be physical defamation or, where an individual has so many bruises on their bodies and then they lose that sense of self-esteem due to all of this, wounds and all that on their bodies. Now, the effect of abuse on the mind is even worse because sometimes we're like, okay, but he didn't beat her. Okay. We hear that a lot. He didn't beat her. If he doesn't beat you, then you're fine. No, I see that as something coming from someone who is very shallow minded. The human mind is the most powerful tool the individual has. And anything that interferes with that, the ability of the mind to function like it's supposed to, becomes a huge problem. So if a woman or a man, but in this case, we're talking about women, if a woman is constantly exposed to any situation or anybody that makes her doubt her sense of self, that makes her doubt herself, that makes her see herself as less than what she is, that is the beginning of everything that can go wrong with that woman. I'm talking about the beginning of diabetes because guess what happens? The individual constantly lives in a stressful mode and constantly produces the hormone called cortisol, increasing blood glucose. And if that continues over a long time, the individual gets diabetes. If diabetes is not treated or managed adequately, it can cause a lot of other conditions, retinopathy, where there's blindness, peripheral neuropathy, tingling of the extremities. The individual can even have chronic kidney disease as a result of uncontrolled diabetes. Now, we can also talk about cardiac effects of prolonged exposure to abuse. Cardiac effects include, like we're going to talk about the Takotsubo myopathy, and that's on the side. Okay, there is a whole lot more that can happen potentially from continuous exposure to any kind of abusive, to an abusive situation. So abuse takes a toll on the individual, physically, mentally, and otherwise.
Physically, mentally, and otherwise. So when we say otherwise, it's almost like an open check.
That's right.
There's no end to what harm can be caused when it comes to the impact of the abuse, right?
Correct.
The one that I want you to talk about, and this is research. Your focus is research, Edith, and you've done a lot of research in your space. The one I want to talk about is TTX. Okay. Now, one of the reasons we're talking about abuse and the impact is because a lot of people are not speaking up. Some people don't even know they're in an abusive relationship until things happen. And they eventually recognize that this is what they're going through. Some who know are too afraid to speak up because the church is looking away. And my concern is the church. My one of my videos, I said, somebody tell me what's going on. We didn't used to see this in the church. When I gave my life to Christ, I knew believers, who were married. We didn't talk about abuse, but there's been an uptick in the numbers in recent times. And everywhere you turn, somebody is divorced. Somebody has, left their husband, all kinds of things going on because of abuse. But we are not saying anything about it. So I'm trying to help people understand that this thing is just beyond being beaten. I watched a video the other day and my heart broke. This guy was beating his wife with a tennis bat, dragging her on the floor. Their child was there crying, and this guy took no cognizance of the crying child. He just kept doing what he was doing, kept beating her. Now, we need people to know that these things have an impact on the mind, on the body, and on other things as well. We've talked about diabetes, the effect of diabetes. Who would have thought that trauma would result in diabetes? Okay, so I want us to talk about TTX. The name is too long for me to pronounce. It is. So please tell us what TTX is and help us to break it down. So when people hear this, they will help women who are in abuse. Or even if somebody comes to me and says, my husband is being abusive, I'm not going to tell them to go back there if they left, because I'm pretty much sending them back to their death. Remember Lot's wife. God brought her out of bondage, and she looked back and became a pillar of salt. The Bible talks about being abusive in the last days. 2 Timothy, I believe, chapter 3. Men will be lovers of themselves, and part of it is being abusive. But this TTX is something I didn't know about until you and I had that conversation. So tell us what TTX is, please. Give us that long name that I couldn't say, and help us to break it down.
So Takotsubo, it took me a while to kind of master that or kind of, get comfortable with that pronunciation. Yeah, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy or Takotsubo syndrome. It's just the other name for stress cardiomyopathy. And this occurs when an individual experiences sudden acute stress. So when the stressful situation just happened, and that can quickly weaken the heart muscles. And, when we think about this, we don't really realize how much constant exposure to stress and trauma and abuse. We don't recognize the impact of constant exposure to this on our health. This Takotsubo cardiomyopathy wasn't a thing in the past until when somebody has sudden chest pain, they can't breathe, their heart is racing, and then they get to the doctor's office and everything is okay. And then you start talking to them. And then, in the course of your interaction with them, you hear them say, oh, I just lost my house, or I just lost my child, or I just lost my husband, or my husband just chased me out of the house, or, and stuff like that. So this Takotsubo cardiomyopathy occurs as a result of a sudden exposure to stress. Now, how does this happen? This happens when the heart muscles are weak and cannot pump blood like they're supposed to. Now, this is not chronic, because in chronic cardiomyopathies, like, if somebody had like let's say an MI, a heart attack, for instance. Okay, it's possibly because they have maybe some kind of plaque in their arteries, or they've been having the coronary arteries. I hate to use those big terms, but one of the vessels that actually carry blood around the heart is weak or is clogged up or something, and the weakness doesn't happen just, it's not usually acute. Sometimes it's over time if the blood pressure is not controlled, or if there is any kind of blockage, as seen in people with very high cholesterol values. So Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is not necessarily as a result of a blockage in the heart or as a result of a weak heart muscle. This actually causes the heart muscle to get weak just at a point. It's not something that, that has been there. So it's as a result of that exposure. Now, guess what happens? The thing with abuse is this. When an individual is constantly in an environment where they are in a stress mode, in a fight or flight mode, the body constantly releases the hormones cortisol and adrenaline. These are stress hormones.
Right.
Normally, let's take this instance, right? If you were to be approached by a lion, right? It doesn't matter how sleepy you are. The moment a lion is right in front of you, your eyes are going to pop open, okay? Right. Your heart is going to start racing. Right. Your brain starts to work, your mind opens because you're thinking about the next exit route. Am I going to fight this lion? Do I have the energy to fight this lion? Or am I going to run? It doesn't matter if you haven't slept in 10 days, okay? Right. So imagine if that lion has to live with you in the same house. So imagine sharing the same house every day with that carnivorous animal that makes you want to fight or fly. Your body constantly releases the stress hormone, cortisol, and adrenaline. Your husband shows up from work. You're not happy to see him because it's going to be a fight, because he's going to hit you, because he's going to say something to you. So when an individual is constantly exposed to those conditions that cause them stress and cause them to release cortisol and adrenaline, they can have a weak muscle over time. Now, if it's a one-time thing, let's say a child dies or, somebody loses their house, yes, we can do some beta blockers to control the heart rates, bring the heart rate back to normal so it's not overstretching the vessels.
Right.
But if it's something that has happened continuously or constantly, the effects can be really, really devastating.
Wow.
And that is what I want people to understand. I want women, I want men to understand. I want children to understand this. Takotsubo, or the broken heart syndrome, is very, very real. And, even if you're in a situation, if it's a one-time thing and, you feel that heart racing and you know how you feel how people feel when they lose a loved one. Now, if you happen to feel that way over and over and over, then you might really need to get yourself to see a doctor, because what's going to happen is those blood vessels keep stretching like an elastic band. Okay, like a rubber band. It stretches every time you're exposed to that stressful situation. It stretches, it keeps stretching. And guess what happens? Like a rubber band, it's going to get to a point where it reaches its elastic limit and then it's going to break. So constant exposure, if you are in a situation where you don't feel valued, where you don't feel respected, where you feel threatened, where you feel robbed of your self-esteem, where you feel like everything that makes you human and whole is taken and stripped off of you, then you might really want to consider taking care of yourself first.
Right. Choose yourself.
Correct.
It's important for us to choose ourselves. I ran into a friend recently, an old classmate.
Mm-hmm.
She had been through trauma, abuse, and finally got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
But she's lost her mind.
Mm.
Because she stayed for too long. When she's talking, she goes everywhere.
Mm.
Yeah. She's not present.
Mm.
And I finally realized what it was after I had done a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a class with another woman who'd been married almost 40 years, and she was never coherent. So we got talking, same story. She'd been in an abusive situation for too long. And these people have heart issues. When they go to the doctor, they're being treated for heart issues. I had no idea that there was something called the broken heart syndrome or Takotsubo, TTX. I tried, didn't I? But
Yes, you did.
honestly, this is education for you empowered women. I'm talking to my sisters, my friends now who are watching. We need to help our sisters. I'm saying SOS, save our sisters. And this is why we're bringing this education today. We want people to know that abuse and trauma is not just a one-time thing. I know a lady who told me that she walks on eggshells, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Walking on eggshells, I did that forever, but it gets to a point where you have to choose yourself over the person who is not choosing you. It's okay if you don't choose me. If it's okay if they don't choose you, you choose yourself.
Choose yourself. That's right.
Yes, and that's my message to everyone. Don't wait until the band of your heart breaks before you find a solution to the issue, before you choose yourself. So, Edith, thank you. That was very enlightening. But my final question to you is going to be, besides choosing myself, what else can I do if I'm in that situation to remedy my heart issues, my health issues? Number one is choose myself, right? What else can I do? Maybe lifestyle changes, something?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Now, I mean, the first thing from a medical professional's perspective, when I see someone who is going through any kind of abuse or neglect, the first thing we try to do is take the person away from that environment.
Because
okay,
you can't heal where you were broken.
You cannot heal where you're going to continuously be broken. Okay, so the first thing is to take yourself away from that environment. Now, let me be very honest with you. Not a lot of women have the mental capacity to take themselves away from that environment.
Right.
Not a lot of women have that mental capacity.
Sure.
It takes a lot of strength to be able to walk away from everything you have built in your entire life. It takes a lot of strength to pick up your kids and say, listen, I want to give my kids the life that they deserve. I do not want my kids to be recipients of this abuse, whether today, whether tomorrow, whether from their future spouses.
Right.
It takes a lot of strength. Now, but let me tell you what happens. Most of the time, when women stay in this environment where they are so abused, after a while, they lose their entire sense of self. They cannot even make that decision. Wow. They lose the ability to be empowered enough to take that bold step. And that's why I don't blame people. When I see people I've seen a woman come to me with a red eye, and I'm trying to intervene, and she says, don't worry, I know he's going to be okay tomorrow. Okay. And then I went back and looked at her history. She's never had a job. She's never been able to do anything for herself, depended on her husband the entire time. So if you're asking her to, okay, let's get you in a shelter. Let's get you, there are lots of, government assistance programs for people who are in this situation, but she can't because, okay, then after that, what? You have to be able to keep up a job. You have to be able to plan your kids, take them to school, do their homework. If they do sports, you need a level of mental awareness to be able to do all that by yourself.
Right. You're so right.
The word we need to put out there is, listen, do not lose yourself. Because if you let this happen over time, you're going to be a total shadow of yourself. And look at what is happening in the world today.
Right.
It's just a ripple effect. We're cycling the same type of men and women who are used to abuse and who want to abuse others because they saw their fathers do it, and then their mothers took it, or they saw their mothers tolerate it from their fathers.
Yeah. And what we tell them is, everybody is going through something. You just have to bear it.
Everybody is going through something, but not something that's going to cost you your mind.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I tell people, I say, it doesn't matter what you're going through. Make sure it's not something that is going to interfere with your mind. Your mind, I don't care if you leave with a pin or a Hummer Jeep. I don't care. Make sure you leave with your mind. Make sure your mind is intact. Because if you expose yourself to any situation that constantly, you don't sleep at night because you're crying, you're not able to eat because you're worried, you come back and you're exhausted and you're stressed out and your mind will collapse. After several exposures, your mind is going to stop working. And then your default mode is going to be fear, anxiety, depression.
Right.
And when you're depressed, yes. And when you're depressed and anxious, I've seen people with suicidal ideations. And then as soon as you're suicidal, they put you on anti-suicide medications or put you in a psychiatric ward. That's it. You're never going to get out of it.
Correct.
If you allow yourself to constantly get exposed to this situation that raises your anxiety, you're not going to come out of that, because guess what? You're going to start taking medications. And when you start taking medications, it never gets better. It's going to be more medicine and more medicine. And at some point, they're going to roll you off as crazy because nothing is going to be working. So we need to protect our minds. I know we love our children, but the best gift you can give to your children is a sound mind.
Absolutely.
Your children don't care if you have $1 in your account, if you have a milk, they don't care. A sound mind. That's the best gift you can give to your children.
Edith, I'm telling you, even if there's no food in the house, I mean, they will survive somehow. They will make it. You all make it together. Honestly, I thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Of course.
Shared. Because again, the goal is not to demean anybody. The goal is not to shame anybody, but the goal is to educate people so they know that there's a lot going on when you are in an abusive situation. And like it takes courage, it takes strength to walk away from what you have built all your life. But it's better to choose yourself and be alive than to be dead. Because then, look at
no amount of money can buy you a new mind.
No. We all know the story of us in Nigeria. Beautiful voice. Where's she today? Her children are there. No more.
Yep.
You know, I would recommend to any woman, stay alive, look after your children. We saw our mothers do it with nothing, little to nothing, and we made it. So our kids too will make it. I want to thank you so much, Edith.
Thank you so much, Coach.
I'm glad you allowed me to disrupt your work schedule.
Oh, yeah. But it's all good. It's all great.
It's all for a good purpose.
That's right. I'll always make time out for this. Really. Yeah, I always will.
And I'm going to have an episode on the impact on women. Actually, have people who want to talk about the impact of the abuse on children, rather not women, on children. Because like you said, we're protecting our children. I don't want to leave. I don't want my children to be the products of a broken home. But how many people on the streets know who's from a broken home?
You know what a broken home is? A broken home is a home that is together and broken.
Oh my goodness. I never saw it
That's
that
a broken home because we have a lot of broken people walking down the streets every day.
right.
And these people have their fathers and mothers in the same house, killing themselves with bad words, abusing themselves. The children cannot participate in sports because the father cannot afford to do it, the mother cannot afford to do it, and they all live in the same house.
They're together, but they're broken.
They're together, but they're broken. We have to redefine a broken home.
Thanks for redefining it this morning. This is eye-opening, and I pray that it helps at least one person. My goal is never to multitude. I'm not after the multitude, and God told me that a long time ago. Said every time you share, don't look at the crowd, look for that one person I'm trying
Just one person, absolutely.
Just one person. And I pray and I hope that today's message will help somebody to choose themselves, will help somebody to come out of the cycle of abuse, will help somebody to make a difference in their lives and in the lives.
I hope so as well. I hope so.
Thank you, Edith. Thank you so much. This has been
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
And I say thank you to my empowered woman. I will see you again next time. Blessings.
All right. Bye-bye.
So glad you joined us today. Please like, share, and click on the button to subscribe. God bless you.